I want to talk about specific days of the year. Those days when you wake up and you know that it's that date. And you're reminded of something that you will never forget. For many people, 9/11 is one of those days where they remember exactly where they were and what they did and what they felt. For Swedes, you have moments like when the ship Estonia sank, taking a lot of lives down, and you have fires and you have the tsunami. Well, today, as I'm recording this, it's April 16th, and April 16th will always be a day of remembrance for me. Looking back 11 years, waking up, it was snowing outside, and me and my friend, we went for a walk. We were gonna meet our teacher over there around noon, and we went for a walk, and we went into different buildings and kind of just like, you know, randomly looking at the architecture and looking at the halls, and I got one of those Facebook memory posts from last year when I was back. I took a picture of the path, the walk path. You could see the shadows of the trees, and the caption was one of the best decisions I've made in my life without knowing it. We were standing there deciding whether to go left or to go right, and for some odd reason, I don't know if it had anything to do with the fact that we had studied an architecture course in a different city, one which we didn't finish, but somehow the building to the right was more interesting from that point of view when we went in there. And I mean, had we gone in the other direction, into the other building, looking back at the timing of when things happened, I don't know. And I've been back many times since. I was back in 2008 and 2009, and last year, 2017. But this day, when I wake up and I realize it's April 16th, I just can't not think of what happened, what could have happened. I remember seeing what I saw, seeing people hurt, seeing people running, and still not processing it, not understanding. Even when SWAT team came and shouted at us, you have to go, and we ran and we went into lockdown. Even then, we were still kind of laughing about it because it was so unreal that we couldn't believe it. At the same time, we had no idea how big it was. And it was only after when I actually heard how many people sitting in the car that it started to sink in. And then the whole business of handling myself and also handling the people back home in Sweden, who had just seen like the small headline go bigger and bigger and bigger, and not being able to contact me because, you know, everything just went down. I mean, 11 years, and then handling the media, you know, wanting to do the right thing, wanting to tell the story, going to the media, and then suddenly sit there in front of Wolf Blitzer, Anderson Cooper, and so on. And then handling that as suddenly being some form of temporary celebrity was just when we left the place and we got to Washington thinking we left it all behind us. We were checking in at the lobby at the hotel, and this family came in before us, and they had a little girl who kind of, I think maybe she was like 5 or 6 or 7 or something, I don't know. She turned around and she kind of, you know, she looked at me and she kind of locked eyes. And then she looked at me like she knew who I was. And then she pointed and said, "Mommy," before her mom, like, who didn't hear that, just pulled her away. And I was like... And even at one of the museums, walking in there, one of the Smithsonian museums, you know, you present your bag, you know, for security check. And then this guard, this enormously big guard, looked at me and he said, "You were there, right?" And I said, "Yeah." And then he moved the table over aside. He walked up and he hugged me. And it was just a powerful experience in so many ways. And out of that enormous tragedy have come friendships, amazing friendships. A last year 10-year-old friendship which got to culminate when I actually got to meet this person. And this person is Dane Walker, and he is the person who has composed the music you're hearing right now. And all of these impressions gathered together in something of me being thankful for not going to the left, not being in that building, not being hurt or shot dead like the other 30 plus 2 plus him. But still, living with something like that, even though I was nowhere close to what other people have experienced who were there, still 11 years later, so April 16 will always be a date in the calendar that I spend thinking and feeling. I want to thank you for sharing that moment with me, even though it happens afterwards. Do you have a date like that? A date which you will never forget because of tragedy? I was only there for even less than a week, but I still feel very much a part of the Hokie family. Thank you, Blacksburg, for the amazing way that you greeted me when I came back a year later, and 2 years later, and then 10 years later. Good talk.